Hello students, welcome to this Frames 5 video tutorial on Fire Part 2. Please open your previous file called Fire from your student number. Remember, in the first tutorial we created the outline of our flame and we created 7 frames. So from the timeline below, I would like you to go back to the first frame. So we created the red area of our flame. Now we're going to create the next layer inside the orange layer. So let's click on the pencil tool. Okay. Let's not change the width of the stroke. It should remember the stroke that we used last time. And this time we're going to change the interior color. We're going to leave this as a solid color for now. And we're going to change the color to orange. So now we're going to do something very similar to the first tutorial, is we're going to create the next layer inside of the flame. So I'm going to start down here. Now the next layer inside is going to be smaller. It does not have to follow the exact shape as the outline. So let me demonstrate. I'm going to again start off the page, off the frame at the bottom. So what you're doing is you're trying to roughly create the shape of the outline, but it does not have to be the same. In other words, it actually works better if it is slightly different. Okay? So it may take you a few tries. And again, this is what you want to avoid. I'm going to create a shape down here where you overlap and you create this loop here. We don't really want that. So I'm going to go to Edit, Undo. Now there's also an undo button up here. Maybe I should start using it. I'm sure you've discovered that already. Okay, so now that you've created the inner orange shape, I want you to make sure that you've got room for another shape inside. But before we do that, we're going to go on to the next frame. So from the timeline at the bottom, click on the next frame. Now, I don't need to turn on my onion skin because for the orange section, it's not as important that it follows a similar path. What I want to remember is I want to create another level or layer inside the frame or the outline that I've already created. So let's follow the same rules that we did in the previous one. Again, it does not have to follow the shape exactly. It's more interesting if it doesn't actually. And then it should fill in with the orange. So once you've got the second frame done, you can go on to the third frame and do the same thing. Now remember, tip, which you already know, you've got to start off the bottom of the frame and then you've got to end off the bottom of the frame. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This one, the way I've drawn it, it looks like the wind is blowing from right to left. All the flames are kind of leaning over to the left, aren't they? Okay, so I can start from this side. It doesn't matter what side you start from. It's kind of like whatever is most comfortable for your hand and moving the mouse. Okay. So I'm moving on to frame 5. Gonna do the same thing. Sometimes when the little branches or fingers are thin, it's tough to get all the way inside them. And remember, we're going to create another layer inside. So I don't want to get things too skinny or too thin yet. I'm going to go on to frame 6. Must be getting pretty good at this by now, using your mouse, trying to draw these intricate shapes. And then I'm going to move on to the last frame. Again, you take as long as you need to get the shape right. Don't compromise. Get the right shape. Take your time. It's kind of a good art project, isn't it? It's all freehand drawing on this animation. Okay, so I've created my next level inside. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the first frame in the timeline. It's probably a good idea, good time to hit save. So now what I want to do is I want to create the smallest level inside, or the smallest layer inside, and I want to make it yellow. So let's click on yellow. I want a bright yellow. Now what I want to do is I want to experiment with the fill effects. Right now, up to now, we've been using solid color. So what I want to try is I want to try something called linear gradient. So what linear gradient does is it combines two different colors. In this case, I kind of want a bright yellow and then a darker yellow, so this is going to work out well. And then it kind of smooths or blends these two colors. So I just want to give you an idea of what this looks like. So just off to the side, I'm just going to create a circle. And then you'll see how it kind of blends those two colors. Now, if you don't like that, okay, I'm going to go edit, undo. I can experiment with the gradients. I can try a radial gradient. Okay. Now there's not a lot of contrast here, okay? Maybe because the area that I'm using is not very big. So if you don't find that you like this, then you can not use the gradient. Okay, so I just wanted to show that to you so that I know some of you will want to experiment with it. Maybe if I combined it with another color, let's see, what kind of color would I see inside a fire? Maybe gray. So let's try one more to see how it would look. Okay, and again, I'm not really happy with that. So again, if you want to take some time to experiment with those colors and the gradients, please do. I'm going to actually turn it off and I'm going to go back to solid color and I'm going to use my bright yellow. Okay, I'm going to keep everything else the same. All right, so I've got a little bit of room to create my final layer inside here. Okay, and now you see kind of, you can imagine that this flame is somewhat dancing around because I've got those three levels of fire working. Okay, so let's go on to the next frame. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. This flame is quite thin or skinny, so I don't have a lot of room to do much, but that's okay. Again, I just want those three layers of color that are moving. Okay, so I've got a loop here. This is kind of what I want to avoid. So I'm just going to undo it and I'm going to try it again. There we go. That's much better. I'm going to go on to the third picture or the third frame. I'm going to do the same thing. And again, you don't have to follow the shape exactly. It's more interesting if the three shapes are somewhat independent, yet they kind of move together. I'm going to go on to the fourth frame. And again, the steps, there's not a lot of explanation at this point because you kind of know what's coming next. You kind of know what to do by now. I'm going to go on to the next frame. Pretty skinny area here that I'm working with. Not a whole lot I can do, but again, I still want to make it interesting. Okay, this actually turned out pretty nice. I didn't think I had a lot of room up here. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Very nice. And then I'm going to go on to my last frame. There we go. Okay. So once you've finished the innermost level or layer, the yellow layer, with all 7 frames, it's a good time to save. Now, let's see how we've improved this animation by adding the different levels or layers. So I'm going to go back to frame 1 and I'm going to press play. I'm going to have a look at my dancing flame. Okay, that looks outstanding. Okay, so let's save your work once more. If it's ghosted out, that means you have the most recent version saved. So I actually just saved, so I don't need to save again because you see here the icon for save is ghosted out. All right, this concludes this Frames video tutorial on Fire Part 2. Please continue on with the next tutorial without calling Mr. Ueda over. Thanks for watching. Good luck. Bye.